Oy vey! Oy vey! I gotta find an ant. Has anybody seen the ant? I gotta catch the ant. What is the ant? Hoy! Oy vey!
Just a little bit too strong.
Kenneth Bilkin. Kenneth Bilkin. Can't find a wiki on him. Wonder why. thezog.wordpress.com. Just found this. You look on the right side, look at all that info. It's a little outdated, but it gives you an idea. Hello, hello, YouTube. Just a little intro music. Mr. Bluntman. What's up, Mr. Bluntman? Oh, we got the bone thruster. Look out, ladies. The bone thruster. Fellow gooies, what's up? What is up? Should be hedged on regaining media. Agreed.
Just getting settled in here, guys. Just want to show you guys something real quick. Dark Alliance, Gary Webb. You guys ever heard of Gary Webb? 1980s, in the early 90s, he started doing a little report on the drug running down in Nicaragua, bringing the drugs into the United States. I remember black people used to tell me back in the day, they be bringing this shit in here. We don't have no damn coke factories and heroin labs in our hood. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You fucking kiss my ass, you know? The government bringing drugs in. My bad. You were right. Dark Alliance, Gary Webb, the CIA, the Contras, and the crack cocaine explosion. He exposes it all right here. The Dark Alliance was a series of articles he wrote for the San Jose Mercury News. And, I mean, this thing is just chock full of information. Well, what happened to Gary Webb? Oh, Gary. What happened to Gary Webb? Well, Gary Webb committed suicide. He shot himself in the head twice. Let's take a look at Gary Webb's autopsy photo. It's not really graphic. It's not too bad. But I think we should take a look. There we go. Let's see. Where is it? There he is. The man shot himself in the head twice. Is that where you shoot yourself in the head? Is that where you shoot yourself in the head? Don't you put it in your mouth and blow your brains out the back of your head? Or do you do the classic temple shot from the movies? I've heard that temple shot people fuck up a lot. I'd go through the mouth and out the back of my head. How do you shoot yourself twice? I guess maybe a gun with a hair trigger. But why would you shoot yourself in the fucking cheek? Can somebody tell me why you would shoot yourself in the fucking cheek? It looks more to me like maybe old Gary was sleeping with his head down on the pillow and somebody put a 2-piece McNugget in him right quick. He was going to write some more stuff. Old Gary Webb. This guy is a hero. This guy, to me, is a hero. You see that little C-SPAN picture of him on the left? He was taking phone calls and shit. I saw that. It was pretty good. There in the middle, you see the Dark Alliance kill the messenger. Gary Webb was exposing this kind of shit, and he was all alone. They fucked with him. They made him commute 75 miles from his job. They just did all kinds of dirty shit to Gary Webb. It was fucked up. Look at him with the stacks of paper on the right there. Reams and reams of paper. You guys think you do research? I thought I did research. Gary Webb was on point. So, how do you shoot yourself in the head twice? He was suicided. That's what happened. The man was suicided. That's what happens to you when you start exposing too much and you go too far. You either end up hanging from some pipes like we read about the other day. What is this? Is this, what is this one? That's not Gary Webb. Okay. So, yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you. That book, this man right here paid for with his life for that book, and you're goddamn right I'm reading it. And one of these days I'll read it online. Now that you say, what does that have to do with tonight? Well, the ADL and the Opium War against America. It's not all they were bringing into America. Heroin, cocaine. The brothers were right. Donovan Warland. Oh, snap. VIP in the house. Yeah, man, listen away, brother. Gary Webb was the man, and he got done dirty, my brother. So the brothers used to always tell me that, you know, they're running drugs in our community, and I didn't listen. I laughed. And guess what? I apologize. I'm wrong. Yep. Sucks. So, keep that kind of shit in mind, that there were heroes. There are still heroes out there. But one man is an island out there. One man can't do it. He needs backup. They can't kill us all. So I always encourage you guys to start up your own content on your own channel. Do whatever you can. Share these videos. Let's get people knowledgeable. I mean, the American populace, I don't have, you know, too much optimism, to be honest. Some days I have no optimism. But it doesn't take everyone to get awakened to this stuff. It doesn't take everyone. You just need a select, dedicated minority, but enough of us that they can't kill everyone. Like they did the DC Madam. You guys familiar with the DC Madam? She just up and killed herself after she was on a radio, I believe it was a radio show, and she said, if you guys find me dead, trust me, I will not commit suicide. If you find me dead, I was murdered. And she ended up swinging from a rope. And there was another girl that was connected with that DC Madam shit. She had a lot of high-end clients. She was going to reveal what she had. Her operation was being used as a blackmail center where people were being videoed and information and blackmail was being grabbed on our people, on our Congress people. And so that's how it goes. You don't usually get to be congressperson or senator unless they've already got stuff on you. I encourage you guys to look at that video of Cynthia McKinney talking about how she was, when she entered Congress. She entered Congress to help her people, and I applaud her. She wanted to help the black people in their community. And I believe she was in New Orleans. I think she was a representative from New Orleans. And guess what? They told her that you got to sign a pledge. You say, well, what kind of pledge? She had to sign a pledge that swore fealty to another country. Can anyone guess what country that might have been? Isis, Ra, and El. The three gods. Isis, Ra, and El. Israel. Can anybody guess now? Oh, boy. Yeah, Cynthia McKinney. Let me see if I can throw a link at you guys. She was a hero to me. She hasn't been taken out yet. But she bravely spoke. She's a black woman. Let's see. She bravely spoke out. And let's see, where is the interview? Cynthia McKinney, U.S. lawmakers forced to support Israel. Who wants to watch that video right quick? It's a short one. It's about 8 or 9 minutes. If you guys want to see the video, hit 1. If you want to jump into the text, hit 2. And take a quick vote. Only 10 of you, so. We got a little delay, so I have to wait a second. 5. Okay, let's take a look. It's too important. Okay.
There is tremendous pressure inside the political process to make sure that the voters stay aligned.
Guys, how's the volume? Give me a 1 if it's good. Give me a 2 if it's not. Give me a 3 if you need more volume.
Inside either the Democrat or Republican parties. Why? Because both of those parties have been captured by special interests. And those special interests are, quite frankly, the antithesis of the interests of the people. And so therefore, for example, if people in the United States care about education, but unfortunately there's a banker that gets in between the student and the student's ability to go to school. If they care about health care, there's the insurance industry that gets in between the patient and the doctor who is seeking to provide care. And so we have all of these special interests that have positioned themselves in between the political decision makers and the people themselves. The process now is more responsive to those special interests than it is to the values and the wishes of the American people. When I first went to Congress, I did not go to Congress to pay particular attention to any area outside of the Black community that I represented that was in need, and of course U.S. Africa policy, which was abhorrent and unfortunately still is. But what I bumped into at almost every turn were these special interests. And there's no more special interest that has any more influence than the pro-Israel lobby. And so then when I did outreach, for example, to the Muslim community in the United States, I bumped into the pro-Israel lobby, which of course does not want to have to contend with a politicized Muslim community, which is as large as and is as wealthy as the pro-Israel lobby is in the United States. So yes, I first-handedly and also frontally was assaulted by the presence of the pro-Israel lobby to such an extent.
Physically assaulted?
Well, politically assaulted.
No, dumbass.
To such an extent.
Physically assaulted.
That my father had to ask the question publicly, what does Stone Mountain, Georgia have to do with Israel?
Nothing.
What I was doing was servicing the needs of my constituents. And I was not allowed to do that because I did not toe the line on U.S. policy for Israel.
What line is that they wanted? Were you told directly that you had to toe a line, or explain that to me?
Well, every candidate for Congress at that time had a pledge. They were given a pledge to sign. And I was new on the scene. And so the pledge had Jerusalem as the capital city, the military superiority of Israel.
Jerusalem as the capital. We got that, didn't we? Good old Trumpy Bumpy.
In Congress, people have to sign this pledge.
Yes, you sign the pledge. If you don't sign the pledge, you don't get money. So, for example, it was almost like water torture for me. My parents observed this. I would get a call, And the person on the other end of the phone would say, I want to do a fundraiser for you.
Listen to this.
And then we would get into the planning. I would get really excited because, of course, you have to have money in order to run a campaign. And then 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the planning, they would say, did you sign the pledge? And then I would say, no, I didn't sign the pledge. And then my fundraiser would go kaput.
Boop. Go ahead.
I made it public. This probably nobody had said anything about it.
Go ahead, girl.
But I made it public, and then, you know, the excuse was, well, you know, those were just overzealous advocates for Israel. So then the tactic changed. And but this is what is done for 535 members of the United States Congress.
Oh my God.
100 senators, 435 members of the House of Representatives.
So, right there, every congressperson, every senator has to sign this pledge or they don't get any funding. Do you know any Congress people or senators that can just get elected on their own funding? Okay. Think about that now. I don't care, you know, Israel could be the greatest country in the world. It's a foreign nation controlling our representatives. I have a problem with that. Let's listen up.
Have to now write a paragraph, which basically says the same thing. So it's not a pledge, but it's a paragraph, and you post it, and, you know, there are these forums you have to go to at the synagogues or whatever. And then, you know, if you don't perform appropriately, then you don't get money to run your campaign. The problem is that it requires an awful lot of money to run a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's a woman's organization, an environmental organization, people can read about this on the internet if they're interested. If you go to thomas.loc.gov, that is the official United States Congress website. And if you put in the name Gus Savage, because Gus Savage was a black member of Congress who was targeted by the pro-Israel lobby. And he had the foresight to use his position as an incumbent in the House of Representatives to put his experience on the congressional record for the entire existence of the United States Congress now. People...
Just give me a sec. I'm going to go back and get that website so maybe we can pull it up.
Foresight to use his position of. That is the official, read about this on the internet if they're interested. If you go to thomas.loc.gov, that is the official United States Congress website. And if you put in the name Gus Savage, because Gus Savage was a black member of Congress who was targeted by the pro-Israel lobby. And he had the foresight to use his position as an incumbent in the House of Representatives to put his experience on the congressional record for the entire existence of the United States Congress now. People will be able to access his experience. And what he wrote.
Look at this. So I go to that website. It says I put in the site she said, and guess what? Gus Savage doesn't show up. So she told me to go to this. I put in Gus Savage. Boom. No Gus Savage. Huh. Isn't that strange? All right, let's go see what she has to say.
Was that it was the Garden Club of New Jersey that gave
his
opponent $5,000. But it wasn't really the Garden Club of New Jersey. It was the activists who were associated with AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Well, the district that I initially represented in Congress, I represented so many districts because
only 3 minutes left.
Was a tool that was used to target me, to eliminate me from the Congress. But the district that initially sent me there was a district that was comprised of rural blacks in the black belt of Georgia These are people who have not had access to equal opportunity at all. The district was challenged in the Supreme Court. And with the assistance of the Anti-Defamation League, the district was dismantled. It generally takes about $250,000 minimum to take a case from filing up to the Supreme Court. And the people who filed the lawsuit to dismantle they challenged my ability to represent the people of that particular district.
Who are these people?
Well, actually, interestingly, there were 5 white citizens, one of whom had been the white male candidate that I defeated in the Democratic primary. And they were aided and abetted by the Anti-Defamation League.
Oh my God.
When
Hold
the
up.
case arrived,
Hold up. What did she just say? What did she just say? The anti-what? Oh, just happened to be reading about the Anti-Defamation League, haven't I? So the AIPAC and Anti-Defamation League are making our Congress people sign this pledge. Now, she was in Congress, so she knows about the pledge as it pertains to them. Do judges have to sign this pledge? How about presidents? How about other people in government? How about the head of the CIA? How about FBI people? Do they have to sign this pledge? And so when Jim Trafficant got on Sean Hannity and said, Israel controls this country, and Sean Hannity said, well, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Are you an anti-Semite? This isn't about anti-Semitism. This is about a foreign nation controlling and dictating the foreign policy and domestic policy of this nation. These people have all been taken over by blackmail. You see what Cynthia McKinney was forced out of the Congress because she wasn't blackmailable. The people fucking elected somebody who was genuine and who really wanted to represent her people. And say, last night I talked about the problems that I have with black people growing up and all. I want to see them do good. I like when I see somebody come rise up and try to help their people. They're my fellow Americans at the end of the fucking day. 9/11 taught me that. After 9/11, in the following days, when I would walk by black people in the street, it was a look like, yeah, we got this. They attacked us. We're going to fucking fight together. There was a unity like I never felt in this country. Maybe one day we can feel that again. I hope it doesn't take another 9/11, but it probably will. But if the Congress people are all blackmailed and they can't do anything to stop the Federal Reserve, to stop AIPAC, to stop the ADL, then that means it's on us, the American people. It's our fucking duty somehow to take this country back. Now, if we en masse were inundating our Congress people, our senators, with emails and letters and phone calls, and I mean real letters, like old school letters, send that shit Pony Express, you know what I mean? If we inundated them, they would be forced to make a move in favor of us, because then they could tell their blackmailers and their handlers, look, we're being forced to. We have no other choice. Otherwise, if they took it on their own initiative, they wouldn't be able to do it. So our representatives, if we're waiting for our representatives to do something in our favor, it's never going to happen. We have to fucking police them. What did they say? Was it Thomas Jefferson who said that we have to be vigilant? That unless the American people are vigilant on our representatives, nothing's going to fucking change. It's just going to get worse. All right, it just blew me away when she said the ADL. So let's go back, let's watch the last minute or so of this. The ADL, man, how fucking... I didn't even know she said that on this video. It's been a while since I've seen it.
In the Democratic primary. And they were aided and abetted by the Anti-Defamation League. And when the case arrived at the Supreme Court, interestingly, on the same day as an environmental case, the Spotted Owl case, The Supreme Court decided that the habitat for the spotted owl should be protected, but that the black voters in that district could have no protection. And so the district was dismantled. Well, I have, because of the notoriety about me telling my story, and then of course the public positions that I've taken supporting the human rights aspirations, the legitimate rights and the aspirations of the Palestinian people, I have a target on my forehead. And that then means that every means that is available to the pro-Israel lobby will be utilized to make sure that I do not ever occupy a position of authority.
Wow.
Now,
wow.
Fortunately for me, there is a very large peace community that is interested in change. And they would like to have a tested, experienced voice representing them in that very hall of Congress so that they can at least have their voices heard, even if they can't change the policy. But being there is the first step to having the
All right, I'll
policy
check that in a
changed.
minute, Donovan. All right, so let's see here. Donovan says that is on there. Let me take a look. Okay, he says if I go back to that government site, put in all legislation in the search. Okay. All legislation. Whoops. Let's see. He says she was right. Gus Savage has endless amounts of legislation he took part in. Smart dude. Okay. I wonder why he didn't come up. Representatives. Oh, I see where they say the representatives. So what you're saying is he put things on record. Okay. That's interesting. So it's these Congress people that you never hear of that are ones actually trying to fight for the American people. It's the Congress people who've been there for 20, 30 years who you know are corrupt, because you wouldn't be able to last in the Congress that long if you weren't playing ball. So if you got a congressperson who's only been around a couple years, maybe you got a shot, you know. Maybe they're the arrow's there to the leftmost top corner. Let me peep it out real quick. Gotcha. Not sure where you're talking about, Donovan. Is it the 100 per page? No. The hide tracker. Anyway, I'll leave that for you guys to peruse in your time, and I'll take her word for it. It's just crazy. So then, when you had Jim Trafficant, who most likely was murdered, they found him with underneath of his tractor on his field. Here's a guy who's done it for his whole life and then ends up with a tractor on top of him. In the search bar where it says current legislation. Ah, gotcha. Go to all legislation. Search it. Gus. Let me just put Savage. Not sure. I'm having a rough time on it, but anyway, I'll take your word for it. Maybe you can show me another time. Just want to let you guys peep this other little interview with Sean Hannity. How was the volume, by the way? Is it all right? Give me some ones if it's okay. Give me twos if you need more volume. Give me threes if you need less volume.
And earlier this month, the always unpredictable...
Fucking Hannity.
Well, James Traficant was released from a Minnesota prison. Now, the former Ohio congressman served a 7-year prison sentence for bribery and racketeering. But
Thank
he
you.
is back out, and tonight he makes his return to the show. And joining us now is former Congressman James Traficant. Congressman, 7 years in prison. That's not a fun experience.
And yes, that is a hairpiece. He makes fun of it all the time. He was a funny dude.
Welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me back. From what I understand, after 7 years, your program has gotten much stronger, so I feel honored to be here tonight.
Well, all right. Thank you.
Honored to be anywhere. I'm glad. Hey, Sean, I'm glad to be anywhere.
Well, I believe that. You actually said that you said this to me in an interview, that you thought you would die in prison. Well, you don't look much different than you did 7 years ago.
Well, thank you. Would you expect me to be wearing prison stripes or something?
Listen, real quick, they fucking put this charge on him. The corruption charges were totally bogus. They threw him in fucking prison for 7 years because he was speaking out about Israel. And I don't know if you guys remember that there was a guy who was being charged with in Israel. They thought he was like this guy, Ivan somebody from the Holocaust, who was killing Jews. And he proved, Jim Traficant went there to the Supreme Court in Israel and got him set free because he proved that it was the wrong guy and they were about to put him to death. And ever since then, Israel's hated him, and he spoke out big time against Israel. That's why you never heard from him much. I got his book, too.
And what I meant was, I believe from the length of the sentence that I received, I think they were hoping that it was a death sentence, that I wouldn't come back and be looking a camera in the eye just like this on a very popular show like yours. So I didn't mean that I felt I was going to be killed, although I was in some situations that were tentative at times.
Well, I can believe that, and I'm sure nobody wants to go to prison. Why don't you, for people that don't know, I mean, here you're one of the most controversial congressmen, powerful congressmen in Washington, D.C., known for fiery...
Don't call me names. Don't call me names.
I know. Known for fiery speeches on the House floor, and then your life changes. Then you're sent off to jail for 7 years. What was your day like, your average day like in prison, and, you know, what was it like psychologically for you?
Sean, I really don't want to go back and revisit those experiences, but let me tell you this. I forfeited the future life to make sure that I survived. I'm mad as hell. There's no doubt about it. And I'm looking to get back at the Justice Department and the Internal Revenue Service, and I predict before it's over that I will. I want to get them right by the short hairs. That's how mad I am.
All right, now, so you are going to try and prove your innocence, say you were wrongly convicted.
I don't need to prove I'm innocent. I don't need to prove I'm innocent. Okay. I believe there's enough happening now with this fella, Mr. Okolo, over in Nigeria, who submitted an affidavit to the Nigerian government and said my life was ruined because I wouldn't perjure myself for the Justice Department against trafficking. Now, all of these revelations are coming forward. You stay tuned. You're going to see them, and you're going to be surprised before it's over.
All right, I'm going to stay tuned. We're going to watch it. But let me go back to this other question, then we'll move forward. What was your life like on a daily basis when you go from being a powerful congressman to then ending up in a daily routine in jail? What was that like for you?
I was just like any other inmate, any other convict, and I did what I had to do to survive. And while you brought that up, I want to say hello to Dre Maddox, Freddie McKnight, and a bunch of young guys up there in Rochester. And I believe our country's so screwed up. Nelson Mandela said, Sean, if you really want to see the true character of a nation, you've got to go through their prisons. And boy, I have.
Are you going to run for office again?
I'm not sure yet. I'm looking at it. One way I can get back at the Justice Department, the IRS, is to be a sitting member of Congress, and I may. I have to look at it. I have no money. I don't expect to raise any money. I never did raise money. I was never supported by any political party, nor the newspaper, so I'd have to run against everybody.
Well, then I wouldn't support.
And I just may do that.
I bet there's probably a few nervous congressmen in your district right now, or in and around your area in Youngstown. Congressman, you said something in an interview with our own Greta Van Susteren. You and I got into this on my radio show, and I am shocked, frankly disappointed, and these remarks sound like the conspiratorial, anti-Semitic remarks of people that we have heard from over the years.
Jesus
and what
Christ.
you said was, quote, talking about Israel and, quote, Jewish people. They're controlling much of our foreign policy. They're influencing much of our domestic policy. What do you mean by that? Because that sounds to me like a bizarre conspiracy theory. Why would you say something like that when it's just, first of all, patently untrue?
Number one, I served in Congress for 17 years. I've seen members question bills and votes on how does Israel feel about this. I must have heard that every time there was a significant vote. Here's what I'm saying. I'm not an enemy of Israel. America supports Israel, and we should. They're a free nation. They're our friends amidst a cluster of dictators and monarchs. So certainly I support Israel. But Israel, through its lobby, has manifested so much power over the United States Congress that we're embroiled in wars that I don't believe we should be. Our kids are coming back in body bags. And in the long run, this Israeli lobby is going to hurt Israel. So as soon as you mention Israel, someone claims you're an anti-Semite.
Exactly, which is exactly what I was going to say. Here he comes. Oh, and you're an anti-Semite because you criticized Israel. Well, what the fuck? I can't criticize a country? Now I'm a racist? All this shit, man. We gotta stop giving power to that word anti-Semite. It's ridiculous. And he said the kids are coming home in body bags. Look at all the wars we're fighting for Israel. Those wars aren't in our interest. And when you know that they have control of our Congress and our Senate, then you know that they will send our military wherever Israel wants it. And right now, we got to yell like hell to stop our fucking people from going into Syria because that's ridiculous.
The truth of the matter is, I'm pro-American, Sean, and I don't like, hear me. I don't like what's happening in America today. Our kids are coming back in body bags.
Wait a minute, but you're
saying, we're bankrupt, completely broke.
But you're suggesting here that we're fighting wars on behalf of Israel.
Yes.
So you just mentioned the 9/11 attacks.
I think a lot of that has been influenced
Hear me
by
now,
Israel.
Congressman. We're not fighting the war. We didn't fight the war in Iraq. We're not fighting in Afghanistan for Israel. We're fighting because this country was attacked, because the 9/11 Commission report said there's a group of enemies against us that are fighting a war against us, and we're not at war with them. So we're fighting them because they killed 3,000 plus Americans. That's why we're fighting. It has nothing to do with Israel.
All right, let me respond to that. We're in a situation where the commission come out and they discuss the attack on America. There's no doubt about it. But our policies in the Mideast have been so one-sided and subjective. Without objectivity, we've created so many enemies, the only way they can strike back is we've imported the terrorists from those actions.
Wait a minute.
So if you question it, you're saying you're an anti-Semite.
That's not what you did. That's not what you said. You said they're controlling our foreign policy. They're controlling our domestic policy.
Yes, and I believe they are.
Hear me now.
I believe they control the Senate and the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That's insane.
And they're controlling
that's insane.
Congressman, that's conspiratorial nutjob stuff.
No,
Listen, wait a minute. Are we supposed to be friends with Syria? Are we supposed to be friends with Iran? Were we supposed to be friends with Saddam Hussein? Hezbollah, Hamas?
Hold it, Sean.
Okay, that's called a straw man. He never said that. Hannity is making a false argument that the man never said and attacking the false argument instead of talking about what the man had to say. The man said we're fighting on behalf of Israel. He didn't say that we had to be friends with all those other Arab countries. We should work with all countries unless they cross us. This is insane. Then Hannity says, oh, that's insane. You're saying that they control our House and Senate? Yeah, that's what he's saying. We just heard it from Cynthia McKinney. They signed the fucking pledge, and they have to do what they have to do to get their money. Otherwise, they don't get reelected. So you can kiss my ass, Hannity. And to think that I used to watch Fox News pre-2008, from about 2001 to 2008, I was one of those fucking dumb asses who sat there and cheered for war and cheered for all this shit. I was like, yeah, God bless America, wrapping myself in the flag, and I still love my country, but I know that a real patriot speaks out when its country does something fucked up. And this scumbag, Hannity, what a piece of fucking garbage, working for these media networks trying to propagandize people.
Well, you said we're not.
Sean,
we're
I
only
know
friends
you
with
need
Israel.
ratings. I know you need ratings. But just hold it.
I have ratings.
I'm not saying we should be friends over there with anybody. I'm saying we should be objective. We have developed serious enemies from a one-sided policy. And yes, I believe Israel, through their lobby, has manifested total power of the Congress of the United
Total
States.
power.
Total
And my
power, yeah.
concern is
Power.
the taxpayers and the citizens of the United States should control their government, not a foreign entity.
To suggest,
That's right.
as you're doing here tonight, that they control our Congress, that, quote, they are influencing and the sole control of influencing of our domestic policy is an absurdity.
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like you are a
You know what's an absurdity? It's your fucking neck. That's look at him. What a piece of shit. No neck having ass motherfucker.
kook.
A kook.
Sean, I'm not suggesting it. I'm telling it. Yes, I believe they manifest a great power over America. Let me also say, in the last 4 years, there are 2 separate incidents of AIPAC spying on America. We even conducted a search warrant on AIPAC headquarters. Now, I don't like what's going on here. All I'm telling you is, I'm concerned about America. You and I might disagree. I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm not against Israel. And if Israel's attacked, I'm the first one to want to support them. But what I'm saying to you is this power that's being manifest on our Congress
Yeah,
is going
man.
to backfire and is going to end up in the long run
Let me say
hurting
this in
Israel
passing.
because the American people are getting about fed up with this government.
One last shot at this. Will you back down from, quote, they are controlling much, meaning the Israelis, they are controlling much of our foreign policy. Will you back off that statement?
No, I don't.
All right, then we disagree. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
What an
They'll
asshole.
be on your show.
What an asshole. How about that? How about that? Isn't that something? I know there are probably many of you not surprised about that. But you see how this all connects. I started out the show talking about that book, Gary Webb, who got shot twice in his head, and they said he committed suicide. This drug running, that's the ADL. The ADL is a vehicle for Israel. And Israel is a vehicle for the mostly Jewish banking cabal. You've got Rothschild, you've got Warburg, you've got Schiff, you've got the Sassoons, you've got the Oppenheimers, on and on and on and on. Basically, Israel is a fiefdom for those bankers. It's like their own little country. And through it, they can manifest control over all kinds of governments. And so you see how deep this rabbit hole goes. Once you learn this stuff, you can't unlearn it. So, that was just a little teaser. Now let's get into the text tonight, keeping this in mind as we're reading this next chapter. Trafficant was run over by his own lawnmower, correct? It was a tractor, I believe. Yeah, I did mention it very quickly, but no, there were no photos that I saw. There was no detail in what happened. I'm not even sure if he was under the tractor. What I heard is that he had a heart attack and fell off the thing and then maybe got run over or something. But it's another hero gone. Another guy who spoke out like Cynthia McKinney, gone. When you have only one person or two people defending what's right, they're easy to take care of. And if they can't control you, first they approach you, they try to buy you off. If you can't be bought off, then they put pressure on you. If you get past the pressure of trying to get reelected and all, then you still won't play ball. Then they got to kill you. And that's what happened to many people in our country. So, let's take a look at what we got going on. It's just good to know. Yeah, another fishy death for sure. It's good to know what the hell's going on in this country, man. And that there are people, so don't be too pessimistic, because there have been good people who have tried to do the right thing. And we have to support them. When we see them, we need to support them. We need to go out of our way to support them. And when we have people in our government who aren't doing the right thing, we need to attack them through letters, phone calls, and emails. Now, I know you guys probably are thinking, wow, Tuil Schmiel, are you crazy? That'll never work. They'll never respond. But like I said in the last stream, I was part of a movement that stopped the DEA from banning kratom, which is a supplement that helps people. It helps people with PTSD. It helps people get off drugs or quit drinking or quit smoking. It helps you even if you just have like pain. It helps you with pain. It gives you a little enthusiasm, a bit euphoria. It can be habit forming, but it's easy to get off of. You just got to go through about a week of feeling like blah. And that's it. And they tried to schedule it as a Schedule 1 drug along with cocaine and marijuana, believe it or not. But we fought them. We got our money together, all the kratom vendors. I'm not a kratom vendor, but I know someone who is. And we got together, we chipped in money, we got some representation going, this American Kratom Association, and it was a success. It was a success. We stopped the DEA in its tracks, even though the big pharmaceutical industry, with the power that they wield over our Congress, we stopped them. That to me showed me that we really can do stuff in this country. We really do have power. They want us to think that we don't have power and that this is just the way it is and it's too far gone and we can't do it. Bullshit. Don't ever buy into that. So if I were ever lucky enough to get 30,000 fucking views, I wouldn't be like these other guys who just sit there and talk every night in front of the camera and say, send me money. I can't do this without you. I can't do it without you. It's your money. It's bullshit. You can do it without the money. You can. I can. If people didn't ever give me one fucking penny, I'm still going to do this because I believe in it. The thing is why don't you use your platform, these people who have 600, 700,000, like Molyneux? Why don't you ever get them together and have your whole fucking subscribership attack one issue until you win? Oh my God, do you know the pressure? State by state, you would do it state by state. But people don't think that way. On YouTube, it's all talking about the problems, and we need to show what the problems are. But at some point, we need to do things in real life if we ever want to change anything. So if I ever get enough subscribers, I'm going to be getting them to attack one issue at a time. And we are going to bombard Congress and Senate with emails. I'll probably just make up an email. You guys can link it and just send it and make it easy for you. I'll make up a letter online. You can download it as a PDF. And then you can print it out and mail it out. You can send it electronically. There is so much that we can do in this country. Even a corrupt congressman will have to listen when he's getting tens of thousands of phone calls, emails, and letters. So, don't ever be defeated before you try. Okay, let's go and read this and keep all that other stuff in the back of our minds as we read. The ADL and the Opium War against America. For the past 2 decades, Wall Street lawyer Kenneth Balkin has been Mr. ADL. A long-standing member of the League's National Executive Committee, Balkin served from 1982 through 1986 as the League's national chairman. It was on his watch that gangster Mo Dalitz got the ADL's prestigious Torch of Liberty Prize, that junk bond swindler Michael Milken poured millions of dollars into the launching of the League's A World of Difference propaganda campaign to wreck American public education. Yeah, we got this Common Core, huh? Where'd that come from, ADL? ADL is an organ through which they propagandize our children. Tell us that we're all evil, we're all racist, we're all this and that, getting everyone hating each other. Thanks, ADL. And that accused drug money launderer Edmund Safra got Balkin and the ADL to mediate a corporate divorce between his banking empire and the American Express Company. Wow. So all 3 of those things happened under his watch. Gangster Mo Dalitz gets his fucking prize, a Torch of Liberty Prize. The children get propagandized, and this drug money launderer Edmund Safra got the ADL, along with Balkin, to mediate a corporate divorce between his banking empire and American Express Company. So it came out that this guy, Safra, was wrapped up in drug and money laundering. And so he was associated with the American Express Company, and they didn't want that association being connected for the sheeple. Sheeple are not allowed to know that. Okay, so in return for Bjalkin's effort to salvage Safra's badly tarnished reputation, the ADL received a $1 million tax-exempt payoff from him. But Bjalkin's real claim to fame is that he was a central figure in the doping of America. See that? The brothers tried to tell me, but I didn't listen. Without Kenneth Bjalkin's behind-the-scenes legal maneuvering, the Medellin cartel would have had a far more difficult time establishing a beachhead in the United States. In much the same way Bjalkin quieted the potentially stormy divorce between Edmund Safra and American Express, he brokered the marriage between renegade financier Robert Vesco and the Medellin cartel's chief of logistics, Carlos Leder Rivas. As a result, the dope smuggling routes through the Caribbean into the United States were consolidated, and the streets of America were flooded during the 1980s with marijuana and cocaine. Let's check the chat real quick. How do I get this kratom? There's only one company I know of that I recommend, and that's legalherbalshop.com. Obviously, I only have like 400 subscribers. I don't get paid to push it, but it's a friend of mine, and if I had to recommend some kratom, I would recommend the Super Greenhorn Mang Da or the Red Vein Malaysian Mang Da. That's what you call plain leaf kratom. There are other stronger kratoms they're called extracts, but if you're not coming off of hard drugs or anything, you probably don't need extracts. Of course, you could do whatever you want. There's a lot of products on the website. It's legalherbalshop.com. Let's see, what else we got? Stop reading my mind, Phoebe says. Let's see what's going on. Money helps. Yes, it does. Yeah, there's a cynicism about the process. It works, and to the chagrin of the elites. Yes, there is a cynicism. I'm a cynic, but it can work. We just have to get together and do things in real life. We can't change the world from behind a webcam. We can change what people know, yes, but at some point we have to have an effect in real life. People can run for office in your locality. You can get together with people in your city and change things, because locally, quite honestly, let me see you guys. Locally is where your vote counts the most. So in a federal election where you're voting for president, say, for example, your vote is but one amongst a great pool of votes. Actually, you're going against everyone in your state. So that's literally one vote in millions. Now, if you had for congressperson, it's a little bit fewer because not as many people vote, so your vote gets a little more relative weight. But where your vote counts the most is where people vote the least, and that's in your locality. There's only so many people that vote in your locality, and your vote is much stronger because it's in a much smaller pool of other votes. So I encourage people, like, we're not just going to go out there and change campaign finance reform, for example. Cynthia McKinney was talking about how much money it costs to run for Congress. Wouldn't it be nice if we could eventually down the road change campaign finance law so that other people, normal people, could run for office and not have to be forced to sign some pledge just to get money because it costs so much to run? Would be nice. But locally is where you can make change in your own little locality. That's where people should start and get a couple victories on your belt, and then maybe go for something to change in the county, and then maybe you can change something in your state. And then if you have a nationwide movement, then we can affect change in our nation. So, for example, somebody said Rhode Island, it's legal to have kratom in Rhode Island. It's legal to have kratom almost everywhere in the United States, with the exception of a handful of states like Wisconsin, It used to be Tennessee, but they legalized it again. There are about 6 or 7 states like Arkansas, Alabama. I can't think right now, but there are a handful of states. When we defeated them from banning kratom nationally, they went ahead and started attacking the states individually. So that's how they're starting to do it. Little by little, state by state, they're trying to take over the entire country. And we need to stand and fight them. So maybe down the road, let's say you live in Alabama where it's illegal. Maybe we'll get all my Alabama subscribers, even if you're not for kratom, but you are for freedom of choice. Then we get all the people in Alabama to start flooding these Congress people and tell them we are not going to reelect you unless you push for kratom reform and legality. So it's possible. It really is possible. Donovan says, I got to get this book. It's available for a free PDF. Let me drop the link on you. It's great to have you here, Donovan. I haven't seen you in a minute. Let's see here. Illegal in Rhode Island. Yes, that's right. You're right. Okay, that about covers it. Let's get back into the text. Bialkin, Vesco, and iOS. This sordid story began in 1970 when Kenneth Bialkin, the senior partner at the Wall Street law firm of Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher, helped engineer Robert Vesco's takeover of the Investors Overseas Service, the iOS, a Swiss-based mutual fund that was founded by Bernie Kornfeld with startup money or funding from the Swiss-French bank of the Rothschild family. Didn't take long for that name to drop, did it? Katow! iOS was a front for Meyer Lansky's international crime syndicate. iOS salesmen traveled the globe carrying suitcases full of cash across international borders. Some of the money came from local investors, but the bulk of it was hot money gained from the Lansky syndicate's dope, gambling, prostitution, and extortion rackets. Let's see, let you guys see the text. If this method of money laundering was labor-intensive and primitive compared to today's high-speed electronic wire transfers, keep in mind this book was written in the early to mid-90s, and so we've got even faster high-speed electronic wire transfers. It was nevertheless efficient. The cash eventually wound up in numbered accounts at some of Switzerland's most corrupt and secretive banks. Some of the banks linked to the iOS apparatus, like the Geneva-based International Credit Bank, the BCI. Oh, that was wrapped up. That was in Gary Webb's book. He talks about the BCI and the drug money. So I knew that would connect together. And the Nassau, Bahamas-based Bank of World Commerce were flagrant fronts for the Lansky syndicate. While BCI was owned by a senior officer of the Israeli Mossad named Tibor Rosenbaum, BCI's office manager, Sylvain Ferdman, was identified by Life magazine in 1967 as one of Lansky's top bagmen, and World Commerce Director Alvin Malnick was Lansky's accountant. Yeah, you heard of BCI, huh, Donovan? Yeah. They're connected. So how about that? Mossad owning this bank that's running drugs and drug money, and oh, it's sickening. American people need to fucking do something. The rest of the world is looking at us and saying, come on, you're our last hope, America. Come on, stand up, people. When Lansky and his controllers decided to shift the center of their underground banking operations from Switzerland to the Caribbean as part of the planned expansion of cocaine and marijuana smuggling into the United States, it was the ADL and Bialkin that engineered the move. First, the ADL's Minneapolis, Minnesota apparatus, known inside the league as the Minneapolis Mafia, which ran the notorious Kid Can Isidore Blumenfeld, organized crime ring, provided the money for a local Hebrew school teacher turned business entrepreneur named Meshulam Riklis to buy up a large block of shares of iOS stock. Once Riklis had amassed enough stock to control the company, he turned around and sold all his shares to Vesco. Vesco was represented in the transaction by Kenneth Bialkin. That's your boy right there, Kenneth Bialkin. By the way, I looked him up. There is no wiki entry for him. All I could find was this, and it is the Jewish Virtual Library, and they talk about his accolades. So I don't know. There's nothing. You can't find anything about him. Obviously, he's still alive because there's a dash there. The only thing I could turn up is that he's part of this law firm that has 1,750 attorneys. That is huge. So you got these criminal drug dealers who are the lawyers who are working in this country. I mean, the tentacles go so deep. It's insane. It's really insane. Okay. Let's see, where are we? Okay. Vesco was represented in the transaction by Kenneth Bialkin. Vesco's next step was to oust Bernie Kornfeld as the president of iOS and take over the job himself. Over the next several years, a total of $270 million, a $250 million, was siphoned out of iOS accounts in Switzerland. Officially, the money was never found, and Robert Vesco conveniently fled the United States one step ahead of the FBI and the IRS. Let me guess, did he go to Italy? No, he probably went to Israel. The Kornfeld to Riklis to Vesco transaction itself may have been largely a wash of Lansky syndicate dollars. That means money laundering. From Prohibition onward, the Minneapolis Kid Can gang had been handlers of Lansky money. Kid Can eventually moved to the Miami area and was a key player in Lansky's big-time move into southern Florida's Gold Coast real estate. However, not all of the money siphoned out of the iOS by Vesco was quote-unquote family cash. A lawsuit was brought in U.S. District Court in New York City in 1980 by some of the independent investors who had lost their shirts in the looting of iOS. While not revealing the whereabouts of the missing millions, the civil suit identified Bialkin and the Bank of New York as partners of the fugitive financier in this scheme. I think the Bank of New York is one of the oldest banks in the United States, if I'm thinking correctly. It was started by Alexander Hamilton, who is probably one of my most hated people in American history, because he brought the first ever private bank in the United States after the Constitution. There was one private bank before the Constitution when we were under the Articles of Confederation, and that was called the Bank of North America. Hamilton brought in the Bank of the United States, which was also, I believe, with Rothschild money, but I can't prove that. The history of the United States reads as pretty much the script is the bankers versus the people, and it has gone back and forth in history from when Andrew Jackson defeated the bank to 1913 when the bankers came back in to now 100 years of slavery and servitude underneath the Federal Reserve. These are the same people that we're reading about today that own that fucking bank. Federal Reserve is owned by its member banks. There are 12 regional Federal Reserve banks. The New York Fed is the most powerful. And those in turn are owned by the commercial banks like J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, etc., etc. And those banks go back to London's Square Mile, and there's a lot of foreign influence in these banks. So, Where are we, people? Oh, it's a shame New Jersey's in this. It breaks my heart, New Jersey. A lawsuit was brought in, and they didn't find the money, but it revealed that the Bank of New York was partners of the fugitive financier in the scheme. On July the 31st, 1980, pardon me, you guys can't see that. There we go. On July the 31st, 1980, federal judge D.J. Stewart ordered Wilkie, Farr, and Gallagher, that's that firm for which one of these guys worked, I can't remember who. It's a confusing web of names. To pay $24.5 million to a group of iOS investors, and ordered the Bank of New York to pay $35.6 million. So you've got that total there, looks like $60 million just about. But wait a minute, wasn't the bank looted for $250 million, $250 million? And I get a pittance back, $60 million? Ay, ay, ay. The fix is in, boys. The case file, which fills 20 cartons stored at the Federal District Court warehouse in Bayonne, New Jersey, shows that Bjauken was the evil genius behind the looting scheme. A year before the court ordered Wilkie, Farr, and the Bank of New York to pay up for their role in the looting of iOS, some of that money had been used by Vesco to purchase Norman's Cay in the Bahamas. A cay, I think, is an island or a cove. Vesco's partner in the deal was Carlos Letter Whaaas, a small-time Colombian car thief and marijuana smuggler who had recently gotten out of jail in Florida. Later, an unabashed supporter of Adolf Hitler, who would later use some of his smuggling profits to found a neo-Nazi, radical environmentalist political party in Colombia, fit neatly into the ADL scheme. I bet you that was a fake thing, the Adolf Hitler thing. Because if the guy was really into Adolf Hitler, he would be for taking the banks away from private hands and issuing debt-free money to put the bankers out of business, because that's what Hitler did. Whatever his faults were, he did at least that well. So it fit neatly into the ADL scheme, with his family ties back in Colombia to leading figures in the then-emerging Medellin cartel. By 1980, the Vesco Letter owned Norman's Cay. This guy Letter was obviously a front for bigger people, was serving as the command center and transshipment depot for a massive marijuana and cocaine trafficking operation from Medellin into the United States. For several years, while running the Norman's Cay operation, Vesco skipped from the Bahamas to Costa Rica to Nicaragua, buying up local politicians and newspaper editors, and always miraculously staying one step ahead of an FBI that never really seemed too intent on capturing the fugitive money man. They just put up a nice little show for the American people. On one occasion in Antigua, Vesco was hosting a lavish party on a boat that he had bought from Saudi financier Adnan Khashoggi. That's a big, big name. I think he's a weapons dealer as well. While FBI agents were combing the island looking for the elusive fugitive. In 1982, Vesco took more secure permanent refuge in Havana, Cuba, as the personal guest and financial advisor to none other than communist dictator Fidel Castro. Vesco and Letter cut Castro in the lucrative cocaine and marijuana business, and Cuban airstrips to refuel their drug flights to America using Cuban airstrips to refuel their drug flights to America, and, in return, helping Fidel to funnel guns to terrorist groups across Latin America. According to investigative reporter Ernest Volkman, by 1984, Vesco and Letter had earned Fidel a $20 billion cut of the growing Western Hemisphere dope trade. $20 billion! Woohoo! Man, That is 20,000 million. So if you had a briefcase filled with $1 million, just imagine 20,000 briefcases, each filled with $1 million. That's what 20 billion is. Thanks to ADL frontman Vesco, Americans were getting hooked on cocaine, while Fidel Castro was reaping billions to foment narco-terrorist insurgencies all over the hemisphere. In the meantime, back on U.S. soil, Mr. ADL, Kenneth Bjorken, continued to ply his trade. In 1988, he left his post as managing partner of Willkie Farr to take a partnership at another Wall Street mega firm, Skadden, Arps, Slate, Megger, and Flom. You can't make this shit up. I mean, it's Skadden, Arps, Slate, Megger, and Flom. You guys know the old joke of the crooked law firm called Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe? You can't make this up. In the speculative frenzy that had followed the Carter administration's deregulation of the nation's banking system and financial markets, Skadden Arps had emerged as the sleaze king of Wall Street lawyering. Now that's saying something. That's saying something. When you are the sleaze king of lawyers of Wall Street, you are the sleaziest of the sleaze because they're all fucking sleazy. Oh my God, what a fucking accolade that is to have, huh? Wow. The sleaziest of the sleaze. The firm's #1 client was Drexel Burnham's junk bond super salesman, Michael Milken. When Milken, yeah, he was milking them all right. When Milken left the wood-paneled conference rooms of Lower Manhattan to set up shop in Beverly Hills, California, Skadden Arps obliged by opening up their own 80-man Beverly Hills office to service Milken's every need. Among Milken's oldest and most well-fed clients was Meshulam Riklis, the former Minneapolis Hebrew schoolteacher who had been an important prop in the Bjorken-executed takeover and looting of iOS. Parenthetically, to do him justice, it should be noted that before he landed in Minnesota, the Turkish-born Riklis had been a British police spy in Palestine before Israel won its independence. Back then it was under the a British mandate, because in World War I, the Brits took Palestine from the Ottoman Empire after the Ottoman Empire was defeated, and in 1917 was signed the Balfour Declaration that promised Israel Palestine. Real quick, it's World War I. Israel wasn't in existence. Germany was kicking the shit out of England. Kicking the shit out of them. At that time, Germany had come up with the U-boat, and they were the only ones who had submarines. By the way, no enemy stepped foot in Germany's territory in World War I, yet they still lost the war. It's another story. England's getting its ass kicked. The U-boats have England surrounded, and they are cut off. They are going to starve to death. They really were strangulating them. And some Jews who were around British royalty at the time, led by Chaim Weizmann. That starts with a W, but it's got a V sound. Weizmann. He came to Lord Balfour and he said, listen, we've got some powerful people in America. We can get America into this war to bail your ass out of this situation. Germany's got you by the balls, and we can help you. However, we want Palestine because we want a homeland for the Jewish people. And so the Balfour Declaration was signed and sent to Lord Rothschild. I actually recently saw a video of a tour of Lord Jacob Rothschild's place, his palatial estate in England, and he has the original Balfour Declaration in a glass case, and he's talking about how this was this momentous thing for the Jewish people. wasn't so momentous for the Palestinians. The Balfour Declaration promised Palestine to the Jews, or to Lord Balfour to Lord Rothschild. It didn't say anything about the Jews. It said Lord Rothschild. So Lord Rothschild owns the motherfucking Israel. It's their fiefdom. They own that shit. They are emperors and kings in that land. So that's something to keep in mind. Little backstory. Let's see. So parenthetically, to do him justice, it should be noted that before he landed in Minnesota, the Turkish-born Rickless had been a British police spy in Palestine before Israel won its independence. When his treachery was exposed, the Stern Gang, led by Menachem Begin and Yitzhak Shamir, some terrorists that happened to become prime ministers of Israel, had imposed a death sentence on Rickless. That death sentence was finally lifted in the early 1980s after the Begin and Shamir-led Likud party came into power in Israel, and Rickless made a very large cash contribution to their campaign coffers. That rapprochement was apparently arranged by Israel's defense minister and Ariel Sharon after Rickless bought him a ranch in the Negev desert. So, let's check the chat. Okay. Donovan's like, oh shit. Let's see. Bluntman, they're not elected, they're selected. Got that right. Didn't stop me from ordering. Got good to be here. Book is in the mail. He already ordered the book. You know how I am a nut for writing in my books. I know, I like to hold the physical copy as well. Oh, BCI, he says, Bahamas, of course. This is connecting so much. Thanks to you. My pleasure, buddy. I've gotten a lot of benefit out of your videos as well. Matter of fact, let me put up 6 million links for you. Just a second. Be right with you. Okay. This is a link to Donovan's channel. I find it very interesting. Let's see. Haha, he says. Wow. This shit, it will blow your mind. It really will. 5 dancing Israelis celebrate 9/11 says, everything you said was true, and the official school education was a brainwash. It totally is. What I'm saying is true, and there's just so much information out there, you just can't deny it. My mind's being blown out over and over. Isn't it fun? It really is fun, though, when you start learning these things. And you have all these, I don't know about you, but I have all these disconnected, disparate thoughts. Something over here. And then I get a piece of information, and it links them together, and you're like, oh, that, yes, yes. So, like I said, Palestine after World War I was under British rule. It was officially Lord Rothschild's at that point, but Britain still had its mandate, which means it was in control of Israel. Now, there were all kind of terrorist groups like the Haganah and the Likudniks and this here, the Stern Gang and all that shit, and they were doing terrorist acts against the British in Palestine because they wanted the British out and they wanted to lock it down just for Jews specifically. And if you guys ever look up the King David Hotel bombing, where a whole bunch of British people were killed, that was the last straw, and Britain got out of there. And then 1948, they took over and officially became Israel. Interestingly enough, those people who were involved in all this terrorism ended up becoming prime ministers of Israel. So Israel's been a terrorist state from the beginning. I don't know, say what you want about Israel, but it's got just an awful history. I was telling you guys last night the way I got red-pilled on Israel was back in 2008, when I was still watching Fox News and all that bullshit, and I was stuck in the left-right paradigm thinking I was a Republican. I was having this beef with a guy from Egypt, and we were going back and forth, sending these long-ass private messages, and I was telling him how much I hated Arabs, and we're going to kill all you fuckers, and he kept coming back with these long-ass private messages. And I said, well, I'm going to go through his whole fucking message and point by point just destroy this guy. I'm going to fucking own him. And every point I looked up, he was right. I looked up another thing he said about Israel. He was right. And I had to come back and apologize to this man. He was gracious enough to accept my apology, and we've been online friends ever since. Once in a while, I'll give him a little chat. But I'll give him a shout out today. His name is Islam. I'm sorry, Islam Muhammad. He's from Alexandria, Egypt. He's probably about 10 years younger than me, and I thank him to this day for red pilling me, brother. Okay, so that's the little history on Israel. Let's get back to the text. So this guy was bought off. This Turkish-born Riklis, had a death sentence put on him by Menachem Begin and Yitzhak Shamir, two people who became prime ministers of Israel. And they were going to kill him, but he ended up playing ball. So he gave him a bunch of money, played ball, and said, okay, I'll fucking play ball. They bought him a little ranch for his ass. Now, I'm a nerd, so I'm going to look up that word rapprochement. I think it's an agreement. Rapprochement. French as hell. Let's see. Rapprochement. A noun, especially in international relations, an establishment or resumption of harmonious relations. Okay, so they kissed and made up, is what that means. After he gave him a whole bunch of fucking money. Balkan and Safra. Before he moved over to Skadden Arps, that lawyer, the sleaziest of the sleaze in Wall Street, Kenneth Balkan had occupied a great deal of his time during the 1980s with engineering a consolidation and reorganization of some of the oldest of the Our Crowd brokerage houses. The banking deregulation frenzy of the Carter and early Reagan years, combined with skyrocketing U.S. interest rates, had turned the U.S. economy into a haven for hot money. That means illegal money. Narco dollars, quote unquote, were flooding the U.S., and Balkan apparently recognized that if he could create a large enough and diversified enough financial structure to accommodate the hot cash, the rewards would be nearly endless. So you got to find a way to clean this money up. Make it legit. In rapid succession, he executed the absorption of Lehman Brothers into Kuhn Loeb and Company. Kuhn Loeb and Company was run by Jacob Schiff with Rothschild money from the late 1800s. Another little tidbit for you. Shearson Hayden Stone bought out Loeb Rhodes. Lots of connections here. Hang in with me. And by 1984, all of those houses had been, in turn, bought out by American Express Company, which changed its name to Shearson Lehman American Express. Give me a second. I'm going to see. I brought something up earlier about American Express. One of our favorite American heroes. Guess who owns a whole bunch of American Express? Look at that. Oh, Mr. Warren Buffett. Mr. Warren Buffett. Mr. bucolic, innocent, all-American guy. He's from the country. He's just like you and I, except he's a fucking multi-hundred billionaire. Yeah, he's just like all of us. So, just wanted to mention that piece of shit is involved in this too, probably. But he's got many layers of deniability. In rapid succession, he absorbed the Lehman Brothers into Kuhn Loeb and Company. Shearson Hayden Stone bought out Loeb Rhodes, and in 1984, all those houses had been in turn bought out by American Express. So it was all consolidated under one entity called Shearson Lehman Express. So many tentacles, and this was equipped. Now they were equipped to clean up all this cash. Okay. Bialkin was an attorney of record on each of these transactions, and he landed a seat on the board of directors of the newly consolidated Shearson Amex entity. Bialkin's buddy, Henry Kissinger, everybody's favorite guy, good old Hank, by now a high-flying consultant to a fleet of major multinational corporations, also joined the board of the Amex Mega Combine. I know I have at least one veteran in our midst here who's fought for this country, and he'll love the quote that is attributed to Henry Kissinger when Henry Kissinger said that our military men are stupid, dumb animals to be used for foreign policy. Good old Hank. Good old Hank. Yeah, good old Hank. He's a good guy. Isn't it funny how presidents change every 4 to 8 years, but the advisors around them never do? The ubiquitous Henry Kissinger? Okay. By now, he was a high-flying consultant to a fleet of major multinational corporations and had the ears of presidents. Not just the ears, but he told them what to do. He was employed by Rockefeller. Also joined the board of the Amex Mega Combine. So, he was on the board of directors. Henry Kissinger. In 1983, Bialkin had also orchestrated the marriage. Excuse me, you guys can't see that. Had also orchestrated the marriage of the Amex conglomerate with Edmund Safra's Trade Development Bank of Geneva. Oh, it's good old Edward. Or Edmund. Edmund Safra, the guy who was the money launderer. He was connected with Amex in the beginning, but was somehow divorced from them in the public's eyes. Well, guess what? He's back. He's back again. There's a marriage now with Amex conglomerate with Edmund Safra's Trade Development Bank of Geneva. Switzerland. Oh, Switzerland, what's that known for? Its special banking privileges. When the ink dried, Safra was holding 4% of Amex stock and was president of its private banking division. The other large block shareholder in the new conglomerate was Carl Lindner, another rags-to-riches wheeler-dealer, long suspected of being a frontman for the Lansky crowd. Oh yeah, I'm sure he was a rags-to-riches guy. You know, he started out as a janitor cleaning toilets, don't you know? Wink, wink. Courtesy of Michael Milken and former Dalitz Purple Gang member Max Fisher, another prominent ADL figure, Lindner became the owner of United Brands, formerly the United Fruit Company. Ooh, I don't even want to go there. It's so deep. U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration officials acknowledged in 1978 that an estimated 20% of the illegal drugs coming into the United States from South and Central America were being smuggled courtesy of United Brands, a company with long-standing ties to organized crime and U.S. intelligence. Let's take a peep at the chat, shall we? Where are you guys? I want to see you. Hello. What do we have here? There's a general's son from Israel who talks about the terrorist attacks from the start. That's the start of Israel, I take it. 1948 was the first terrorist bombing caused by a Jew dressed as an Arab. Yeah, there were a whole gang of them. They're used to do the Jews' sacrifices without getting their hands dirty. Yes, they use proxies all the time. They're always at least a couple steps removed. But in the case of the King David Hotel, it was the Jewish terrorists themselves who pulled that off. All right, back to the text. The capacity for money laundering and smuggling represented by this United Brands / Amex Combine made Vesco's earlier iOS venture seem like a mom-and-pop operation in comparison. However, things began to unravel very dramatically for Bialkin and his conglomerate clients on April the 2nd, 1989. That Sunday's edition of New York Newsday ran out a full-page banner headline, quote, "Dirty Money. Number 606347712 is the New York bank account where two major drug money laundering probes meet," unquote. The story by Ace Ventura, pet detective, no. The story by Ace investigative reporter Nut Royce, revealed that Edmund Safra's Republic National Bank of New York was serving as a money laundering hub for both the Medellin cartel and the Syrian Lebanese mafia. Wow, how did that get out? This newspaper must have been a small timer, because the New York Times isn't printing that shit. That's why they're saying is all the news that's fit to print. In other words, that they're allowed to print. The story by... Okay, so there's a connection. This New York paper is saying that there's a drug laundering, money laundering hub for both the Medellin cartel and the Syrian Lebanese mafia. Some deep connections. DEA and U.S. Customs investigators involved in two separate high-priority probes had traced dope dollars from South America and the Middle East into the same numbered account at the main branch of Republic. So somebody was doing some actual investigation and journalism. Royce's story was based in part on a January 3rd, 1989 DEA report from the Bern, Switzerland office. The subject of the report was a Geneva-based firm, Shikarchi Trading Company. Working in league with the Bulgarian secret police, the Turkish mafia, and Syrian and Lebanese drug traffickers in the Bekaa Valley, Shikarchi had laundered the profits of the Middle East heroin and hashish trade through Switzerland into Republic National Bank. Account number 606347712 was Shikarchi's account. What's more, the DEA document revealed that Edmund Safra had been a lifetime friend of Mahmoud Shikarchi, the founder of the Swiss company, and continued to enjoy a close business relationship with Mahmoud's sons, who were running the firm at the time of the Newsday expose. The DEA report said that all of Safra's banks had, quote, surfaced in the investigation of Shikarchi's alleged drug money laundering activities, unquote. The Newsday story had been apparently put together with the assistance of angry federal drug investigators who felt that major drug money laundering cases had been blocked for political reasons. Indeed, both Bialkin and Safra were hot political commodities at that moment. Iran-Contra special Iran-Contra special prosecutor Lawrence Walsh was deep into his probe of illegal covert operations by the Reagan-Bush White House, and both Bialkin and Safra, as well as the ADL, everyone's favorite YouTube censor. Hey, let's hear it for the ADL. Thank you, ADL, you cocksuckers. Had surfaced as prominent players in the secret diplomacy with Khomeini's Iran and the illegal covert war against Nicaragua. And so now we're getting some... I know a little bit about the Iran-Contra thing. As far as, like I was talking about, we have all these disparate pieces of information, and then something comes in and connects. That's what just happened to me there. Because my man's book, I guess I put it back, talks about that. Gary Webb's book, Dark Alliance, talks about the connections between the CIA, Nicaragua. They would run a plane to the Nicaraguans. They would drop off weapons. They would pick up money. They would buy... they would take the cocaine in the United States. Then they would get more weapons and take it to Iran. It was like this big revolving circle jerk. I'm not sure exactly how it worked. But this connects to it. This shit is deep. This shit is deep. Blows me away. It really blows me away. So the DEA report said that all of Safra's banks had surfaced in the investigation of Shikhatri's alleged drug money laundering activities. And the Newsday, let's just recap that. The Newsday story apparently put together with the assistance of the angry federal drug investigators who felt that major drug money laundering cases had been blocked for political reasons. Yeah, because they were hiding all this shit. And the ADL was wrapped up with it because Balkin and Safra were hot political commodities. Iran-Contra Special Prosecutor Lawrence Walsh was deep into his probe of illegal covert operations by Reagan-Bush White House, where Reagan was like, I don't know anything. And both Balkin and Safra, as well as the ADL, America's favorite YouTube censor, had surfaced as prominent players in the secret diplomacy with Khomeini's Iran and the illegal covert war against Nicaragua. So you see these tentacles all overlap. Number one, Balkin had been the attorney for Adnan Khashoggi in arranging for the Saudi financier's purchase of the original shipment of arms to Iran in exchange for the release of an American hostage. 2. Balkin's Wilkie Farr law partner in Geneva, Willard Zucker. Notice how all these names, or a vast majority of them, tend to be Jewish? Is it me? Or does that make me an anti-Semite for pointing it out? Not saying the Gentiles aren't crooked, because they sure are, and there sure are a lot, but they are junior partners compared to these guys. Willard Zucker had been the money handler for Oliver North and Richard Secord at Lake Resources, Inc. Earlier, Zucker had been Balkin's Swiss point man in the Vesco looting of iOS when they stole $250 million and had to pay back 60 mil. Another longtime Wall Street associate of Balkin, Arthur Lehman, had served as the chief counsel to the Senate Iran-Contra panel, which whitewashed the scandal and threw up major roadblocks to Walsh's independent counsel probe. Guys, I want to point out something. It's not a Semitic idea, but it's a semantic idea. If you look at what I just read, where it says scandal, do you see that where it says which whitewashed the scandal? Okay, let me tell you something. From this point on, and me pointing this out to you, unless you already know, you're going to hear the word scandal an awful lot in the news media. And I always say, why is this? What are you talking about, scandal? A scandal is cheating on your wife. Banging the next door's neighbor is a scandal. AKA not criminal. This is a fucking crime. This is no scandal. It may be scandalous, but you see how the media softens things with this language, this ever increasingly politically correct, soft language. Okay, a scandal is putting peanut butter on your dick and having the dog lick it off. That's a scandal, okay? Running guns and drugs and money laundering, that is a crime. Okay, I just had to point that out because it fucking bothers me. Another longtime Wall Street associate of Balkin, Arthur Lehman, had served as the chief counsel of the Senate Iran-Contra panel, which whitewashed the crime and threw up major roadblocks to Walsh's independent counsel probe. The ADL's Latin American Affairs Director, Rabbi Morton Rosenthal, had authored a report labeling the Sandinista regime in Nicaragua as anti-Semitic and urging all American Jews to back the Reagan administration's secret war in America. You see, boys, that's why we need to go into Central America and destroy these Sandinistas who are really actually trying to push out American companies and nationalize their own fucking resources and wealth for the use of the Nicaraguan people, but they were communists and anti-Semitic and all this and that. Guys, don't buy the hype. Don't believe the hype. Let me check this chat real quick. Okay. You're welcome, Donovan. So, there you go. The Sandinista regime in Nicaragua is now anti-Semitic. And the American Jews should back the Reagan administration's secret war in America, in Central America, because you know the Reagan administration is just worried about killing anti-Semites. Carl Gershman, another point, Carl Gershman, who cut his political teeth working as a full-time staffer at the ADL's fact-finding, Dirty Tricks division, in the late 1960s, that was to do with Nixon and all that, was made the head of the Reagan administration's National Endowment for Democracy. Notice how they give these nice names for these flowery names. Again, an abuse of language to fool the American people. What it should have been called was Criminal Endowment for fucking crime. But no, National Endowment for Democracy, which was the primary funding conduit for the entire Contra effort. Edmund Safra had been directly involved in the logistics of the Iran-Contra operations through his Republic Corporate Air Front Company, which he jointly owned with Willard Zucker. According to news accounts, it was one of Safra's airplanes that brought Ollie North and Robert McFarlane to Tehran in the spring of 1986 on their last ill-fated effort at an arms for hostage deal. The Newsday story also intersected an escalating war of words between Safra and Amex chairman James Robinson III. Safra had quit as Amex's international banking head a few years after he had merged his trade development bank into the Balkan-made mega firm. That's that conglomerate of all those things that were bought up, like, Shearson and Kuhn and Loeb and all that shit. And Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers doesn't exist anymore as of 2008. It is now defunct. And all its toxic assets were bought up by the Federal Reserve and probably still sit there today. Let's see. With a 4-year non-competition clause now expired, Safra had launched a raid on some of Amex's top employees and private banking clients in preparation for the launching of a new private bank in Switzerland. Amex fought back, and the whole sordid affair landed before a federal judge in the civil court in New York. Guys, just because I'm a nerd, we're going to go and look up sordid. It's not in good meaning. It means involving ignoble actions. Ignoble means immoral. Involving ignoble actions and motives, arousing moral distaste and contempt. Sordid. The story paints a sordid picture of bribes and scams. It certainly does paint a sordid picture. Indeed. Indeed. Oh, while I got you, we're almost at the end here, so I wanted to share something with you guys. I'm a nerd. I like looking up words. Let me show you guys what I do when I get some words I don't know. Here's just the last week, some words that I've heard that I want to write down, okay? I write down a word that I'm not sure of or it's kind of new to me, whether I know it or not. And then I take those words, I look up the definitions, and I keep my little bag of tricks here. I got a nice little stack of index cards. This is how I educate myself, because you got to understand, words are your ammunition in life. If you can't express yourself in an eloquent way, you don't have a good chance of conveying your ideas to other people. Okay? Starting, these are some words that I haven't looked up yet. Starting right there at abject, I put the definitions. You see on the back here, just tons and tons of words and definitions. That's how I do it. Words are your arrows in your quiver. And when you go to war, you better have plenty of arrows in your quiver. So just a point, you guys, start up your own little thing. And I know I could do it online, I could do it electronically, but for me, going old school, writing it with a pen and paper, somehow helps lodge it in my mind better. The trick with a new word, anytime you have a new word, the trick with it is to use it correctly in a sentence 3 times. And generally speaking, you will own that word for life. That word is now yours. So you make up 3 sentences. You use the word correctly in 3 unique sentences in which it conveys the context meaning. And you will own that word for life. Now, when you're reading old books from the 1700s and 1800s, you're going to come across so many archaic words. When you're reading something on something like banking, there are all kinds of abstruse words, difficult words that you're going to come across that are specific jargon to the specific genre that you're looking at, or the particular milieu, if you will. And unless you know those specific words, you're going to be wasting your time reading. If you're the type of person that just skips over words you don't know, then you're not going to understand what you're reading. What is the sense of reading if you don't understand it? So for me, I cannot stand letting a word go that I don't understand, because there's something that's trying to be conveyed to me and I'm not understanding it. So once you look it up, once you own that word for life, every time you see it thereafter, you're going to know what it means and you're going to be able to skip on through. So when you first get into a new subject, such as banking, you're going to see all these words. You're going to be overwhelmed with things that you don't know. But as you, one by one, write these things down and learn these words, you'll find that in a short time, you'll be reading right through these things, understanding just about everything. So that's my little tip for the day from the grammar Nazi and the word man, nerd man. That's me. Incidentally, that using this word 3 times works for learning someone's name. If you're like me, I have a terrible time learning a new person's name. So when you first meet that person and they tell you their name, use their name 3 times in a sentence while looking at their face, and your brain will associate the name with the face, the name with the face. Some people are good with names, some people are good with faces, but rarely are people good with names and faces. So somebody says, "Hi, my name's Ken." "Hey, Ken, nice to meet you." That's 1. "So, Ken, tell me a little bit about ba." That's 2. "Ken, how did you feel when ba happened?" Now you know Ken. So it's a good little trick that I like to use. All right, let's finish out. We are almost there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get done with this whole sordid affair. Amex fought back, and the whole sordid affair landed before a federal judge in civil court in New York. Kenneth Bialkin, still representing Amex, hammered out an out-of-court settlement, which included a published apology to Safra and a payment by Amex of $1 million, a pittance, to each of 4 of Safra's favorite charities. The ADL was on the top of the list of beneficiaries. Well, who would have guessed? So look at that. Amex fought back, and they took him to court. Wow. Isn't that unbelievable? Isn't that unbelievable? I guess it's not unbelievable. It was a classic case of ADL sleight of hand. Actually, I just looked up sleight of hand the other day because when I typed it in, I thought it was SLIGHT. Slight, like slightly. But no, it's SLEIGHT. Slight now has its own index card. It was a classic case of ADL sleight of hand. Amex delivered an apology to Safra, quote-unquote, exonerating, that means forgiving, giving a clean slate, Safra of any alleged drug money laundering, even though nobody ever challenged the authenticity of either the DEA's Byrne memo or the Newsday story. So, wow, a little bit of magic by the ADL. Amex had to deliver an apology to this criminal. They had to exonerate him of any alleged drug money laundering. But they did that even though nobody even doubted the authenticity of the story. So they never attacked the legitimacy of the story. They just framed him up and got him to apologize. Amazing. The New York Times and all the major Wall Street-linked news media dutifully ran the Amex mea culpa, and the ADL waltzed off with a cool $1 million in tax-exempt funds, as if they needed it. In the meantime, the ADL was busy on a dozen other fronts, helping to fuel the speculative frenzy that would drive the U.S. economy into the ground by the end of the 1980s. And at the end of the 80s was the banking and loan crisis, if anyone is old enough to remember. Crisis. Again, one of those words, the soft language that even I feed into. Guys, what did you think? Oh, etymology is eye-opening. I love etymology, where the words come from, which is why on my cards I generally like to include the etymology, because you'll find that you end up seeing prefixes and suffixes that in the future will give you clues to what the word means. That's a good eye, Phoebe. So let's see. Donovan Warland says, yes, I love going through that process. Interesting, we both do that with the cards and stuff. You do. I figured you as much, because you're very detailed. And that's what I like about you. That's why I'm subscribed to you for so long now. I like that about you. And you also strike me as the type of person that if you get new information on something, you're not afraid to change your mind or your opinion about something. And that takes courage, honestly. Most people get stuck in their own little paradigm, and they tend to see everything through that filter. And they get stuck in a pattern where they predetermine what everything means. Not me. I want to learn. It's my goal to learn every goddamn day. That's what I love to do. And I like to share with you guys. So, man, thank you guys for, coming to check this out. I hope it was an eye-opener. Tomorrow, let's see what we're looking at tomorrow. What do we have on deck? The ADL and the junk bond bandits rip off America. There's Michael Milken. Look at that. Good old Michael Milken. What a fucking den of thieves, like it says there on the right. Yes, den of thieves indeed. That's part of a famous Andrew Jackson quote. You are a den of thieves and vipers. You remember that when he beat the banks? Anyway, that's a whole other tale. Guys, thanks again. I really appreciate you guys. Spread this, share it, get people to subscribe so we can build this up. And it's limitless, the things that I could read online and learn together with you guys. You guys have a good night, and I'll check you out later. Thanks for coming to check me out, Donovan. Blunt Man, if you're still listening, I love you, buddy. I miss you. And thanks for everything you've done for me, my man. That's a good friend. A good friend will take you in when you're at the lowest point in life. He was the only one that took me in, and he's forever in my heart for that. I love you, Blunt Man. Check you guys out.